Hello and welcome to another episode of the Aravaipa Rides podcast. Today I have Stefanie McDaniel, pro enduro rider, with me as a guest, and we'll just jump right into it. Stefanie, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you so much. Really, really excited to be here.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I had looked up because I thought for sure you had been on the podcast before, and so I delved into the archives. And didn't find one, so I came in here this morning thinking, okay, I was just wrong with my earlier misconceptions. You corrected me.
Yeah.
You actually did do a podcast with Morgan earlier. I had not gone into the middle era of our archives, so I'd gone way, way back. So you have been here before, so welcome back.
Thank you.
I guess that's where the long story,
Yeah.
long way of saying welcome back. But first time in studio, so
Yes.
fantastic to have you here.
Yeah.
So you're a pro rider. You are local here to Phoenix.
Yep.
Why don't we just start with you and your background, a little bit about your background, where you started from, and how you got into mountain biking.
Okay, awesome. Well, I started mountain biking like my first ever time riding. My boyfriend at the time, kind of introduced me to riding, and coming into riding, being a beginner rider, having a dirt bike background, I loved going downhill, but I had zero cardio.
Gotcha.
So I really didn't love it right away. Like I loved any time we would descend, but not so much climbing.
Yep.
So I I had a really heavy bike.
Yep.
So I was like, yeah, this is, it's fun. Let me know when you shuttle and then we'll go from there. So that was about, 12, 13 years ago.
Okay.
And then I did it a little bit. I live at South Mountain. So like I'd go out a little bit here and there, nothing too crazy, until I tore my ACL dirt bike riding. And that was, that would have been in like 2015, 16.
Okay.
And my PT was like, hey, mountain biking, not obviously extreme mountain biking, but riding in general is really good for your knees, right? So he's like, how about you get yourself a light bike that you can pedal around, like around, Bronco Flats and DC and that sort of thing. So I did that, and I was like, okay, like actually having a bike that is light and pedalable, you're not pedaling around like a 45-pound free ride bike.
Sure. This
makes things more enjoyable. Yeah. So I did that and, quickly realized like, okay, I'm getting my cardio up, like I can climb and then I can descend. And I love the adrenaline of going downhill. So really kind of fell in love with the sport at that point in time. And so I entered my first race in the fall of 2017. I actually raced the NBA, like the inaugural NBA Enduro Series.
Sure. And
was like, this is amazing. I love this. I'm all about it. Let's do it. And so at that point in time, like found all the races that I could and, started riding for Pivot. And it would have been at the end of 2018 and, still a rider for them and a lot of other really great companies. And I just absolutely love the sport, love racing, and love getting people involved in it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There is so much that you just said there that I want to go back.
Let's dig in.
So let's see. Let's start with, you said you had a background in like motocross or
yes,
dirt bikes.
Dirt
so
bikes.
That was something that you did as a child coming up?
Yep. So basically like when I was around, I'm trying to think, 9 or 10 years old, I started riding with my dad and basically just all desert single track, and totally loved it. My dad grew up riding dirt bikes in northern Idaho, and so he definitely wanted to get his kids involved. And my sister and brother, they also rode, but like I definitely was like the one that was super excited about it, you know.
Okay.
So yeah, did that and just absolutely loved riding dirt bikes. And I still have a dirt bike. I definitely don't get out as much as I want to, just because it's so much easier to, especially living, right down the street from Desert Classic. I can roll out of my house, get right on the trail, do a ride, don't have to change my air filter when I get back, clean my, all the things. So yeah.
Said you grew up desert riding. Did you grow up here?
Yeah. Grew up in Arizona. Grew up in Gilbert.
Okay.
And then when I met my husband, he's an Ahwatukee native, and so he was like, "Hey, this mountain over here is really cool," know.
Gotcha.
And I hiked and trail ran for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when I found biking, I was like, okay, I still hike a little bit, but
there you go. Sure, new love.
Yeah,
new
exactly.
Passion.
Yeah.
So roughly. When was this you started that you kind of transitioned into the biking a little bit more?
So I mean, definitely, I would say when I first was introduced to biking, about 12, 13 years ago, it was kind of like a, I'm sure like most most women, you know, they have their spouses that like are like, hey, this is really cool. You should do this,
Gotcha.
you know, and then
Yeah.
it's like, you know, I kind of want to do it on my own time and my own thing. And I kind of have to figure out, you know, what that
Yeah.
looks like. And so really it was like 2016 when I really started wriding.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fully adult.
Yeah, totally.
Gotcha.
Definitely fully adult.
Fully adult. So I guess the question I had was no riding, no experimenting with like a BMX bike when you were a kid. Like
Not
you were
really,
into
no.
the motocross and never
Yeah.
like tried the pedal thing on the same track or
No,
a similar type
no.
thing?
So I never like I rode track a little bit, but
Okay.
I never raced.
Gotcha.
I was all about desert single track.
Okay.
So I mean, and there's definitely a difference,
Sure.
you know. So like track riding is awesome and super cool. Props to people that do that. But like I was always one that was like wheels on the ground, tight, twisty, you know, chunky. Basically the same thing that I love about enduro. And
Right.
you know, I definitely get my wheels out of off
Yeah.
the ground now. But you know, all about just like really technical terrain.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So jumping into the mountain biking then, where so you started on like Desert Classic area, excuse
Yeah.
me. How long did it take you to kind of find out that you really liked the downhill versus the Desert Classic or Bronco Flat?
Yeah, I mean, so I definitely, going back to like when my husband first introduced me, we did shuttles on South Mountain.
Okay.
And so like definitely did not have business going down like Geronimo
Sure.
and stuff like that, you
Yeah.
know, but I did.
Okay.
And I was good at it until like, you know, I had the speed. And the thing with like, you know, why you always hear people that are like, oh, I have a dirt bike background,
Right.
you know, and it's like, because you're going so much faster, you're able to read the terrain on a
Okay.
dirt bike. So the crossover to mountain biking is like pretty dead on,
Gotcha.
right?
Sure.
You know, but things that are different. Brakes typically are on the other side, right?
Right.
Like you usually have your rear brakes like on your foot,
Yep.
and then your front brake is where your rear brake is on a mountain bike, right?
Yep.
So that's different. The shifting, you know, all these different things.
Sure.
And then just body position, cornering's a big one. Like with cornering on a mountain bike versus a dirt bike.
Yep.
Dirt bike, a lot of times you like squeeze your seat. You know,
Yeah.
you squeeze your saddle with your knees,
Yep.
and you're kind of using that to turn.
Yep.
You don't do that on a mountain bike. You don't want to do that on a mountain bike. And that actually
the
was one
opposite.
thing that like really for me was hard to break was
Okay.
like getting my knees away from my frame, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I mean, I knew that I loved the gravity part of things,
Sure.
but I could only do it if I was shuttled. Like
Okay.
there was no way that I was going to be climbing up National or Mormon,
Right.
especially at that point on a like 45-pound free ride bike.
Right.
Like I would have zero energy to do, you know, so I'm like shuttles, yes. Love it, great.
Yeah.
But you know, you don't really like we do shuttles, but like you don't do it every day.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's you drive around the mountain to get up and all this kind of stuff. So I just kind of was like, whatever, you know. But then when I got the lighter bike and I'm like, okay, this is really fun, you
Easier to
know.
climb.
Yeah, but I was like, as soon as I got my cardio up, like, and don't get me wrong, I still love DC. Like, I live right off of it, so I ride it a lot. I think there's like really great sections to practice on.
Yep.
But my love is definitely like, give me the chunky, fast, technical descending. You
Nice.
know, so
Very cool.
it's always been in my heart.
There you go. Yeah. When did you decide to turn pro? Or what led up to turning pro?
Honestly, it's funny because even racing, I never really wanted to do that. You know,
Okay.
through, you know, starting and like, and understanding that like I had a talent and especially like I could go fast and, you know, you start adding all these techniques, working with coaches and taking clinics and stuff like that. It's like things started clicking.
Sure.
And, you know, different people along the way would be like, hey, you should think about racing, you know? And at that point in time, enduro was around, but it was still kind of like a fairly new sport.
Okay.
And so like downhill racing was still, you know, and still obviously is huge. And so like, well, you should do that. And I'm like, you know what? I don't really have like, I love to go fast, but I don't know if I have that competitive nature because growing up, I never really played. Like I was totally I skateboard, I snowboard,
Okay.
I dirt bike. Like I'm not into team sports. I'm not in competitive, nothing, you know, like none of that drew me. So I wasn't really sure like how I would feel about being competitive. Like, don't get me wrong, especially like against my brother, you know, riding, like, I mean, we would go back and forth, you know, riding dirt bikes growing up, but I never really like had, you know, any more of that. So, my husband was like, hey, you know, like we should race. And he really was wanting to race.
Okay.
And so when he, you know, found the NBA Enduro Series is doing their first race and it's at Sunrise, you know, at the downhill park, and I had been there before, I was like, well, you know, I guess that's fine, whatever, you know, like still not really like, I'm just like, I guess we'll do this, you know? Yeah. And even then at that point, not really understanding like exactly the format of enduro, you know, I was kind of like had my ideas and things like that, but until you do it and you like, you're like, oh, okay. So I'm able to race downhill on a track that I'm released on my own, right? Like you're anywhere from 20 seconds to a minute in between, depending on the race.
Right.
And it's you versus you. You don't have to worry about hikers and dogs and horses and right. It's just you on the trail. Yeah. I can go as fast as I want. This is freaking awesome, you know? So like after that first race, I was like, yes. Right. And I just wanted to race. Okay. So I did that whole series, you know, had podiums, ended up first overall for the series.
Awesome.
And which was like, wow, this is so cool, you know? And knew I wanted to kind of get more in like the regional space. So then the next year, so this would be in 2018, I was like, let's figure this out. So at that point in time, there was the Scott Enduro Cup, which is now defunct. Okay. But they were kind of like, they had a Moab race and a Deer Valley race and Snowmass, like, you know, kind of more on this side of the United States. Sure. And so I was like, I want to do these. And so I did them, and kind of midway through the season, my bike is falling apart. You know, I'm just like going through parts, going through everything. And someone was like, hey, you should, you know, talk to Pivot and see, you know, and like, I would see them out on the trail. They're a local brand, you know, like kind of like a pie in the sky thing, you know? Yeah, right. And I was like, hey, all right, cool. You know, why not? Like, might as well ask. Yeah. The worst thing they could say is no, you know? Right. And so I ended up reaching out to them and like getting connected with them and going for like kind of a test ride with Chris Kokalis on South Mountain. And it was like, this is your tryout, this is your demo, and like had a blast. Like, I think blew him away. And like, next thing I know, like, would you like a Firebird, you know, for the last race of that series? Awesome. And so, you know, things have kind of gone on since then. So I never really like expected to like race for one. Okay. And then for two, like it was kind of like an organic kind of like, okay, like I guess I'm a pro rider now, you know, like I guess we're doing this thing. Right. So yeah. That's pretty long story short.
So that was 2018. So it's been about 4 years. Yeah. 5 years that you've been doing it. Awesome. Yeah. And you picked enduro because you loved enduro. Yeah. Was there any chance of like entering a race cross country down?
Oh yeah. I've actually, so I've dabbled in cross country. Right. So I did, not last year, but the following year I raced a couple of the NBA races. Okay. And like, I'm probably going to do them this spring too. Yeah. You know, like they're great. I mean, I love like getting that kind of, you know, aerobic base going. Sure. And like there's nothing like a cross country race. True. You know, like that, the first race, and like side note, my first ever cross country race. So this was 2 years ago, NBA McDowell. Okay. Right. Yeah. And so I show up and I'm like, I literally have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I'm like, I don't know what pacing is. Right. What, you know, all I know is enduro, you are like, you know, balls out. Sure. for the stages, and like that's it, right? Yeah. You pace yourself on the climbs when you're doing transfers and stuff. So like trying to cross over to cross country, I'm like, I have no idea. So I'm asking everyone, you know, like, hey, what do I do? You know, like I understand I ride, but how do I, you know? So I just get all this advice, you know, and everyone like pretty much is like, okay, well, you know, at McDowell, you start kind of in that like parking area, and you get, you know, to the trail, to the competitive loops. And so, you know, you don't want to go too fast, but you kind of want to be like at the front of the pack. Right. So I'm like, all right, noted. So don't, you know, burn myself out, but like kind of be front of the pack so I can get on the single track and be, you know, more in front. Sure. All right. So I'm like, okay, got it. So we line up, and my friend Paul's in the, you know, in the crowd, and he's like, get the whole shot. And I'm like, whole shot, moto, let's do this. So I, it flag drops. I just start like BMX sprint. Oh, I mean, and I was like bike lengths ahead of everyone else, like an idiot, you know, and I'm just like sprint, like full on sprint. Yep. Get to the single track. I'm like, yeah, but I'm done. Like, that's it for me, you know? And it like literally took me that whole lap to like, after I'm getting passed by literally everyone to like finally realize like, okay, like definitely blew myself out. And this is not what you want to do in cross country races. So anyway, definitely learned my lesson on that one, but got the whole shot.
Yeah.
Even though that's not a thing. So that's all right.
Not as important.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I've done some cross country racing and, you know, like that, not as my actual like discipline.
Sure.
As far as downhill, I definitely have thought about it.
Okay.
And, you know, I love enduro because it is like you still have pacing and you have time over your, you know, if you mess up in one stage, hey, you can make that up, you know, and there's a lot of like kind of different strategies with that.
Yep.
Where downhill, it's like you make a mistake and like pretty much that's it, you know? So it's a lot more on the line. And so I definitely have like thought about doing that and maybe I will. So we'll see.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
World's still open.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. And you said are you doing NBA this year?
Yeah, yes.
Enduro and cross country or just?
Yeah, so I'm doing the full enduro series and I actually, so the first race was a couple weeks ago at Sunrise. And the cool thing about doing the enduros here locally, like I love, you know, competing myself.
Sure.
But to me at this point in time, it's more about getting more women involved in the sport. So this is the second year that I've done, I call it the Ladies Enduro Shred and Prep.
Yeah.
And so we had, you know, group of ladies, a couple of them have raced before, but a lot of them haven't. And so kind of like introducing women to the sport and, you know, kind of giving them all the tools and opportunity to be able to, you know, show up to the race, not feel super intimidated about like, oh my God, what do I do? You know, especially at Sunrise being the first race, like it's very intimidating. And then, you know, so kind of like bringing them through the whole enduro series and like just watching their confidence skyrocket, their riding ability skyrocket. So that's been super cool with the enduro series last year and this year and like, you know, being able to work with Tim and like having him really excited about, you know, me doing this. Like it's really cool. So that's awesome. That's definitely something that like I'm stoked about. And then I'll be racing probably not the whole XC series, but like at least the first couple.
Gotcha.
So,
the ones down here in the valley.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Kind of close.
Yeah, I'm not going to have a suit race at cross country.
I hear you. Awesome. I wanted to jump into your coaching, but we'll because you left that nugget there. We'll do this first. So your Sladies group.
Yeah.
You said a couple of them, the current group at least that you have now, have some racing experience. What have you seen historically with that group? Are you getting kind of first timers? Or are they women who are already experienced who want to take the next?
So what I've seen, you know, as far as last year. So last year the group of ladies, none of them had raced before. Really in any discipline. They were all very, very new riders, right? And the cool thing, I feel like, I mean, with any discipline, but especially with enduro, it's so much like how people ride. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I guess maybe I have a twisted mind on that, but like you kind of like cruise up the descent or the ascent, right? Like you slow climb and then have a blast going downhill. You know, like I feel like most, I don't know, maybe not you, I don't know. Some people are opposite, but
I can see it. I've never done it, so I don't have the experience.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, like if
I'm like right with you,
right.
I have to imagine it.
Yeah, but I mean, like if you know, like most people that ride like a Mormon National Loop. They're like not going nuts going uphill, right? They're just like, okay, we're just cruising uphill, maybe taking some stops, you know, kind of finding our way up there. And then on the descent, we might be stopping, but like we're going to be, you know, having a blast. Like that's why people do the Mormon National Loop, right? They have that national descent, you know what I mean? So like I feel like, you know, obviously there's different paces and things like that. But for the most part, like enduro is much more approachable because it's the way that a lot of people ride. You know,
makes sense.
So, no, obviously there's like the different terrain and stuff like that, but so most of the women, you know, they were for last year, mostly new riders, you know, have a little bit of experience riding, but not necessarily racing and no experience racing enduro. So that was super cool. And then this year I have a couple ladies that did the series last year with me that are in this group. So again, just kind of like, you know, bringing the level up for their own riding. And then one of the gals actually is, she comes from a cross country background and she's like, I just want to let you know that like I'm only doing this to improve my cross country. And I'm like, fair enough.
Cool enough.
And you're going to,
right.
you know, because I've worked with a ton of cross country racers and, you know, riders in my own, you know, clinics and stuff like that.
Sure.
And so if that's always the thing that's lacking, you know, they're great climbers. They can, you know, they can go in a straight line. They can do all these things. But when it comes to things getting technical and stuff, it's like most of the time they fall apart.
Yeah.
So getting that edge, you know, those like, you know, the death by 1,000 paper cuts. Every corner you do better. Every little descent you do better. You know, it's like those are those seconds, you know.
Yep.
And I always ask people, like, especially kind of working with kids a little bit more recently, is like, how many of you guys have lost by 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, a second, right? And it's like, what would that have been? You know, like you probably couldn't have pushed it any harder on the climb.
Right.
Probably couldn't have pushed it any harder when it was flat, but that corner that you messed up on, that you know, and so like let's focus on those to kind of progress you to the next level. So anyway, it's been really cool with these ladies with the enduro stuff, because it's just, I think just having the confidence of being able to look at the course with someone that has ridden it before, and you know, to be able to see the lines and really kind of pre-ride stuff with confidence instead of going into it like, oh my gosh, this is the scariest thing I've ever done.
Right.
You know.
Gotcha.
So it's been really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that's only the last couple of years. You've been
So last year and then this year. So yeah, last year was the first year that I did it with MBAA. This year, and then got some cool things coming up with Pivot to kind of bring it a little bit wider net for it. So yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
Again, I swear we'll talk about coaching, but to go back to your pro career so far. So we talked about some local races, obviously, but talk about some of the others. I'm sure you've gone elsewhere.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite races outside of Arizona?
Oh wow. So I mean, I feel like anywhere to race is amazing. You know, like just terrain in general, like, you know, most of the places that I'm racing are at ski resorts. And so, you know, big mountain, that sort of thing. Definitely, I feel like my favorite race has been like Big Sky, Montana.
Okay.
The BME is there, you know, they'll be there next year, which will be like the final race, which will be really cool. Usually it's earlier in the season, and like this year it had to be canceled because they had snow and the flooding, you know, like all these things happening. But that terrain is so amazing.
Really?
You know, the trails are really cool. They're super steep.
Okay.
Like it's funny, you know, the more places you ride, you know, you get more experience, and you're like, okay, you know, I have that in the memory bank.
Yeah.
When I first rode there, I thought I knew what steep was. And I'm like, yeah, I have no idea. And then from there, you know, like riding in, like, for instance, Purgatory in Durango.
Yep.
Again, thought I knew what steep was from Big Sky, Montana.
Right.
Had no idea, you know? So it's just like, you just kind of start adding all these different places. But yeah, I mean, pretty much anywhere. Like, there hasn't been a place where I've been like, this is a horrible, you know, venue to race at.
Okay.
I think most of them have been pretty epic.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
We have a quite a bit of varied terrain just here within Arizona.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows Sedona, of course. When you think of mountain biking on the bigger scale, Sedona comes to mind more than like Phoenix.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm okay with that.
But we also have, I mean, you can go east, right? Up Pine and Pine Top.
Yeah.
You know, we've got races up there, just lots of trails to hit up there as well. You grew up in the desert, low desert.
Yep.
Gilbert, what's your terrain favorite? Do you prefer the lower desert? Do you prefer the woodsy mountains?
Ooh, I mean, I definitely have, my heart's definitely at South Mountain for sure.
Okay.
Just because I feel like that's like really where I cut my teeth in mountain biking.
Yep.
It's funny, I was actually talking to a friend yesterday, and he's like, are you sick of South Mountain yet? Because I was like, I'm going on a ride yesterday. He's like, are you sick of that place yet? And I'm like, honestly, no.
Yeah.
Like, I get where people could be sick of it, but I feel like even within South Mountain, there's so much varied terrain. I mean, obviously, it's all desert and rocky, and, you know, it's like, we don't really have dirt, you know, we have some dirt in different places. But yeah, I feel like it's such a gym, you know, like, and it's really cool to be able to live right there. Right. And again, like, I really feel like if I didn't have that access where I lived right there and I didn't have to drive to the trailhead, I probably wouldn't be as good a rider as I am, just because I don't have that drive time and things like that. You know, I can get to work right away, get right on the trail, and you know, so it's like literally my backyard. And I think that definitely, like, I don't know, my heart's there, but I mean, again, I can see the beauty in all the different places,
Yeah.
you know, like I think what is happening at Haas and, you know, that whole area, like that's awesome. Like I'm always just blown away going out there. Yeah. And, you know, what the Haas Trail Alliance is doing is really, really cool.
Amazing. Yeah.
You know, it's a shame that stuff like at South Mountain couldn't happen, you know, but you're dealing with the city and, you know, park and preserve and that sort of thing. But it's awesome that, you know, that's happening at Haas and it's, you know, it is, you know, a 30-minute drive away and that's awesome. That's close.
Yeah. Yeah. It's close enough that it's not too bad. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know just, you know, meeting so many people in the last year who live, you know, have the same experience, but Haas is the backyard. And they say the same things about Haas, right?
Yeah.
And any of us who are close enough, that can be a semi-regular visit for sure. But I agree. I mean, if I didn't say it before live, and it might have been before, but South Mountain's my backyard too. And I do have to drive. I'm not close enough to roll. I mean, I guess I could, but it would be a bit of a ride on the road first.
Yeah.
But it is. I've never gotten tired of it.
Yeah.
If I want to go to the south side of it or the north side of it, if I want to change a pace, I can go. I can even drive around to like, you know, Chandler and 17th or whatever, and start on power lines over there. And there's, you know, you can do lower stuff, you can climb, you can do some stuff that's gnarly, you can do some stuff that's not so gnarly.
Totally.
You have a really good base of different things. And you can do really short loops if you just want to quick or don't have time. Yeah. And you can do something that you can spend all day out there. And
absolutely.
And you have to come back around to where you started from. So it does have quite a lot for everyone. And it's pretty, and it's varied.
Yeah.
So I like it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some other things around the valley that I think are great. And you said South Mountain is a gem. I think we have our gems all around the valley.
Totally, yeah.
And once again, like we're not really well known.
Yeah. It's like, hey, let's
Arizona,
cut this now.
Right?
Everyone wants to go to Sedona, and it's like
maybe Flagstaff, and you know, and that's about it. And so it's nice in a way. It's nice that we don't have that draw. In a way, it's like, man, I wish more people could experience it.
Right.
But I know as soon as they all show up, we'd all be like, oh man, we gotta move.
Dang it. Well, it's funny because like I, you know, have friends that come in from, you know, different places, especially like people that come from Colorado. Yeah. And they're always like, this could never happen, like South Mountain or Phoenix Mountain Preserve. Yeah. In Colorado, in Denver, right? Like, because you're going to be overrun by hikers and then it's going to get closed down. And like, you know, it's happened in places, you know, and it's like, and not to mention, obviously house prices have gone up, but like the house prices, you know, around South Mountain and around Phoenix Mountain Preserve and stuff, it's like, is so low. Yeah. Compared to, you know, these other places where it's like, you've got like literally a preserve right here. Yep. You know, it's just like, whoa. Yep. It's crazy.
Yep, for sure. When we were moving last time, we looked a lot in Ahwatukee. For just that reason. It's like, where can we get something like really, really close where if it's not literally the backyard, it's just around the corner. Unfortunately, just didn't find the right house for us. But I mean, again, I'm just down the road, so I'm not complaining. All right, let's talk about coaching.
Okay.
So you turned pro about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. When did you start sharing your skills with others?
So again, I feel like I'm like finding this like thread throughout everything. When I started getting into coaching, one of my friends in Tucson, Tara, who owns a coaching company, Homegrown, they do tours and guiding, and she's amazing. She was like, hey, you should think about doing coaching. And I was like, again, I don't really know. Like, I'm not really like this lukewarm of a person. Like, I feel like I'm like, you know, I'm like, I do what I do, but clearly both in racing and coaching, like I needed a little like push. So anyway, you know, she's like, hey, you know, you should think about doing, you know, coming and doing a coaching certification. They were doing one in Tucson for the PMBIA, the PIMBA. Yep. And she's like, you should do it. You know, it really like helped my riding. And I'm like, oh, it helped your riding? Cool. Like anything that helps my riding, I'm about, you know? So my husband and I both went and did the level 1 certification. Okay. And it was basically like it was like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or let's see, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just all day on Mount Lemmon doing, you know, this coaching certification. And like, it was amazing, you know, at that time. So that was in, would have been like early 2019. I felt like I was a, you know, an okay rider, good rider, you know, I was racing a little bit. But going through that course and really kind of like getting back to the fundamentals, I was like, oh, wow, stuff that I had heard before. And there's so much information.
Yeah.
It's so easy to like get stuck on this and that and then forget about this over here,
Sure.
you know? And so just really going back to the fundamentals, I was like, this is amazing for my own writing, you know? And even then, like, I was like, I don't know, like maybe I'll coach, but you know, I love this for me. This is great, you know? And even like the instructor of that was like, you should really think about coaching. Like you have a gift. And I was like, oh, okay, well, cool. I appreciate that, but we'll see. You know, I've got a lot of things going on. So went through the 2019 race season and really just found like at that point in time, I feel like that was kind of, you know, the start even before COVID of a lot more women getting into the sport.
Okay.
And it's funny to think about that now because I feel like today versus then is like so crazy as far as the explosion in women's mountain biking, you know?
Right.
Because at that point it's like, and even, you know, when I started riding, it's like I was usually the chick, you know?
Right.
I was the girl that rode, you know? It was like maybe there were a handful of other people, but to find groups of women riding together, absolutely not. Right. You know, maybe you'd see that on the road, but not on the trails, you know? And so I went through the race season and just kind of like had this pull because I'd see some ladies here and there and I'd see them on the trail and it'd be like, yikes, you know, like just they need a little bit of guidance to be safe. You know what I mean? And anyone can get into mountain biking, women can get into mountain biking, but I feel like there's information that, you know, we need to have to be safe, you know? And so I'm like, okay, well, let's see about this. Right. So I started doing, and I wanted to do something where it was like, you know, I had taken clinics in the past. Okay. And they were very valuable for me. But I always felt like when I'd go to a clinic, it would be, you know, a weekend clinic and you would get so much information. Right. That it'd just be like, okay, well, where do I even start? Yeah. You know what I mean? Just information overload. Yeah. So I wanted to do, you know, basically a like successive coaching class where it'd be like we'd meet once a week for, you know, 4 weeks and we'd kind of just build on it, you know? And so I was like, I'm going to do this. So I started my first Slaties, Skills and Shred series. Yep. And so did that, like had great success, not only just, you know, getting so many women signed up, but people were really excited about it. Okay. And then, you know, to see the women progress safely was really cool. So that's when I started it. And then, you know, I've added some different things, obviously like the enduro thing. And, you know, I have done more like intensive classes where like, okay, we're just going to focus on rolls. We're going to focus on drops. We're going to focus on corners, you know. So it's not like full on, you know, here's, you know, 3 days of information. Good luck, you know. So yeah, just like really, really love, you know, coaching and giving back. And I coach, you know, women. Obviously, I have a special affinity for just because I'm a woman and I love, you know, I think being an ambassador for the sport and being a higher level rider than a lot of the women getting into the sport, I feel like I can give information that, you know, let's be honest, most women don't necessarily want to hear their husband's advice. That's usually like, hey, just send it. You're fine. Right. Just trust the bike. Yeah. You know, it's like, let's not really do that because this is, you know, it's going to end up your wife's going to fall, your girlfriend's going to fall or whatever. And she's never going to want to do this again. Right. You know? So, you know, the women, I love doing that. But I've coached, you know, families, kids, men, you know, anyone. Like I'm all about that. Sure. And I actually just recently this year, I got linked up with the Arizona Cycling Association, so the ACA, so the youth cycling, and I am one of their instructor trainers. Very cool. So basically coach their instructors or instruct their coaches, who then coach the kids, right, at both the middle school and high school level. And so that has been super rewarding, and being able to kind of link up with some of the kids too and kind of work a little bit more closely with them on skills has been awesome this year. So, very cool. Yeah.
So you left it with that, and I had a question for you about the ladies getting in. I think you had said earlier about like you got in with your husband or boyfriend
Yeah,
at the time, right?
yeah.
And are you finding, so a lot of the women that come to you when they're sort of first time or realize maybe they need the coach, or
Yeah.
maybe you approach them like you saw them
Yeah.
on the trail and you're like, let's get you just a little bit of guidance kind of thing. Are you finding a lot of them are brought in by another person and not given that guidance, just sort of like, well, everyone can ride a bike, so this is just a trail, or are they finding it on their own? Because like you said, it is accessible, very accessible sport. What do you feel is kind of...
I feel like that, like the tides have shifted a little bit with that, because for a long time it was more like, hey, my boyfriend or my husband or, whoever wanted to get me into the sport.
Sure.
And really, like, I feel like I was lucky because my husband, he was a newer rider, but he had some knowledge. Okay. And we, like, even though he gave me advice, it was more so like we were kind of working through it together. Okay. And then we like went to do some clinics and stuff like that, you know? So I don't think I ever really got the experience of like my husband teaching me. And I also, like, even though I didn't have some of the skills, I still had a lot more just coming from dirt bikes, where like I had like, I was like, all right, let go of the brakes, like, not to say that is safe, you know what I mean? Like, especially it's like my first ever bike park experience, getting a concussion on the first feature, 5 feet into the trail, this is not good, you know? But yeah, I feel like we kind of worked through that together. But now, I'm definitely seeing a shift, at least within the women's mountain bike community, of, yes, maybe their husband or their boyfriend's gotten them into but there's such a huge women's community that I feel like a lot of women are bringing other women in.
Awesome.
And so it's happening. I feel like it's a little bit easier digestible for whatever, for many reasons we could talk about, but a woman, hey, like, this is what we can do together, and like seeing other women do it. Like, I feel like that's like brought more women into the sport, especially recently.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So flip that then, now that you're doing some coaching with the kids and working with that. How do you find, are they finding the sport on their own or through their friends? Is it because dad or mom rides?
Yeah. I think there's definitely a combination, but definitely I feel like the families, especially now that more women are getting into the sport. And I definitely think the family element has been huge. And, the kids, it's more rare to see a kid riding that their mom or dad or combination doesn't, ride together with them. But I'm sure that'll change too as more and more kids get into the sport. And that I think is like the coolest thing about mountain biking is like just all that, like ACA and the youth cycling.
For sure.
It's like, man, if we only started when we were 8 years old, you know what I mean? Like these kids are just insane how well, and just how that is going to impact every discipline of cycling. We're already seeing it now, like you look at like Haley Batten and some of the, more like World Cup riders that are like so young, know, and they just have such an amazing talent. We're going to see that, it's going to go younger and younger and younger, even look at like World Cup downhill, Finn Isles. Mm-hmm. He's like 18 or 19 years old, won a World Cup.
Right.
And you're just like, holy crap, like you don't just pick this up yesterday,
right.
Like you've been riding since you were a tyke, you know? And so it's just, that's the coolest thing. And I feel like cycling, regardless of the discipline that you get into, teaches so many life lessons, for everyone. Shoot, myself, like, and it's so cool because it's like really being able to do hard things. We live in a society where we can be like super laid back and easy and be on our phone and lay on the couch and watch Netflix and convenience all around. Like we aren't tested, and like mountain biking, it will test you.
Time.
Like as far as you want to go, it will kick your ass, And so like having that, I think for kids, for everyone, but especially for kids, like these are going to be some gritty kids,
For sure.
So I love it.
Yep.
It's really
not
cool.
Get knocked down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think it's amazing how large the sport is, how large it's grown, right? Yet how small it is
Totally.
on the world stage. I mean, we're in the Olympics.
Yep.
But you don't really hear, it's
Yeah,
that
yeah,
marginal,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that marginal sport in the Olympics. It's not really covered on TV.
Right.
Maybe like your Fuel TV, some
Yeah.
of your alternative sports
Right.
will do like a feature. It's not like a regular
Right.
everyday thing. There's not too many regular tours that I know of that can be
Right.
captured in a multiple episodic kind of thing. Yet if you go to YouTube, you could spend 2 months
Right,
and
yeah.
not see anything but a brand new mountain bike
Right.
of some discipline
Yep, yep.
or skill level
Yep.
or pro or amateur or whatever. Somebody with just a GoPro just in their hand and one trying
Right.
to run, okay, this is my first video
Yeah.
and it lasts only 2 seconds,
Yeah.
but it's there.
Yeah.
They put it up, and I think like you were saying for the kids, finding that. If it's not mom and dad, and maybe
Yeah.
it's mom and dad at this point because so many adults are riding.
Yeah.
But then having that as like, I can go home and watch it where 20 years ago you couldn't.
Yeah, yeah.
If you were a mountain biker in the 90s, it was just other mountain bikers that
Totally.
you were talking to
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I think like you were saying to the sport, like kind of similar to like snowboarding in the 90s, how it blew up in the 90s
Yep.
from all these skateboarders in the
Yep.
80s, bringing in this other discipline that was close enough, and surfers, I
Right.
guess too, that was close enough that the skills sort of worked and you had to tweak it a little bit on the
Yeah.
snow. But they were phenomenal, by the time they hit the snow
Yep.
and just kind of took over the scene.
Yeah.
So it's something that's definitely shifting, I
Yeah.
think, too.
Yeah.
It's been kind of a old person sport.
Yeah,
I mean,
right, yeah.
And the old person being like 24 maybe.
Right.
24 to 40, maybe, whatnot. But it's been kind of an adult sport, not really so much of a kids youth sport until just recently.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think the next 10 or 20 years even is going to be a real interesting
yeah.
change,
Yeah, for sure.
for what's going on.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind me asking, it's kind of going back a little bit more too, but you said you were kind of, you were lukewarm, not having like this definition of or defining line of where you wanted to go with coaching and racing and all that stuff. What were you doing? What were you thinking about doing before you found all this?
Well, so I have been, and I still I work full time.
Okay.
So I help run my family's electrical contracting company. And prior to that, I was in real estate, in commercial real estate, and did a lot of marketing. It was kind of a new concept we did. It was called Garage Town.
Okay.
It's like garage condominiums for people that had boats, cars, RVs, all this kind of stuff,
Gotcha.
right? So we brought that to Phoenix. So I was really into that.
Okay.
And then, slowly shifted over to my family's company, which again, I never would have wanted to be in the contracting world, right?
Okay.
But whether you're doing contracting or this, same, right? You're
Yeah.
pretty much doing the same thing. So, but I've really found an affinity for not only working with my dad, but just in general to create systems and, really kind of bring the company up into the modern world and all
cool.
these things, right? So I always had activities, right? Dirt biking, snowboarding, all these different things. But I didn't really know necessarily if I wanted to go, if I wanted to do that as a career or something like that. And obviously, I do, but I don't, right?
Yeah.
I still have this, and I feel like for me, I definitely have found, especially over the last couple of years, I do really well with high stress.
Okay.
With I'm not an idle hands person.
Gotcha.
I don't know what to do when I've got idle hands, So I'm let's just bring it, just add the layers. Let's keep going,
Sure.
right? So yeah, I think, doing that, and it allows me to have a flexible schedule, and then, I can race and train and coach and do all the things. So
Very cool.
yeah.
Awesome. So back to the women. How do we bring more women into the sport? Our mutual friend Marion was here on the last podcast, and she had this great quote, which has stuck with me for the last 3 weeks or so. We were talking about the end of our night series of races, which she won in her category. She podiumed the whole series and got the series award. But she said, kind of point blank to me, she's like, I'm tired of being winning by default.
Yeah.
Tired of winning by default. And I said, yeah, and unfortunately, in her case, in the 3-hour category, we've had a few other women, maybe half a dozen total over 6 races. Just race, just be another competitor, and obviously plenty of men to race against. So
Right.
there's still competition,
Right.
But for podium and for that sort of thing. Plenty of women come out for the shorter distances. Still, very male dominated. Excuse me. But just how's I mean, maybe you're finding a way because you're a woman and you've done it for a couple of years, but maybe you have ways of cracking women into, or that's not the right word, bringing women into the cracking the egg, breaking the mold. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Getting them, I guess, not just on the trails, but checking out a race. Maybe you would like it. Like, you found racing totally by accident. And fell in love almost instantly, as you said. And not to say everyone has to fall in love.
Right.
But just to sometimes, I think everyone wants to like prove themselves once in a while.
You have to test yourself.
Enter a race a year. Once a year is what I'm trying to say. just to go out there and say, hey, am I better than I was last year? Am I better than this person? I mean, that kind of thing. Am I better than myself? I don't know. It's certainly something I've thought about recently, being a new race director, seeing that my races are very male-dominated right now, but we're new, we're fledgling, and I think that's probably natural for the sport that's already male-dominated as well. But trying to find a way, I've met many of the H-Bro women. I don't see all that many of them show up at the races too, so it's not like you can just go out there, shake hands, introduce yourself, and then expect that they all show up.
Right, like, hey, all right, cool. We've got this whole crew coming.
We know Aaron, all right, he's coming. We're coming to your race. So just trying to find a way to I don't know if it's making it more attractive, making it more something more than just another thing on the calendar.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have some kind of like, obviously these are my own opinions and things like that.
That's
but
fine. That's right.
I feel like, so enduro, we're talking enduro, cross country, there's all these different disciplines.
Absolutely.
I feel like enduro and downhill and anything gravity is very scary.
Sure.
Right? Cross country, not so much, but still it's intimidating, right?
Absolutely.
And you have, you've got women that are coming into the sport that are testing themselves on a daily basis, riding and things like that. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people, and this is something really more recently that I've kind of poo-pooed before, but I see it because I talk to, different women and hear this is like, I don't find myself like, I post videos on Instagram and things like that. And I don't necessarily think that like I look aggressive or like, like it's intimidating, but like, I watch all these other riders that, ride really technical stuff and, and they race. And so like, I feel like there's kind of this stigma around racing is like, it's just aggressive and, like this, I just want to kind of be in my own little thing and do what I want to do, and obviously not all women are like this, but I think in general, like you have that to kind of have to break through. Right. And so the other thing too is, you have generally women, not all, kids. They've got kids, family life. They got the thing, you know what I mean? Right. Like it's not necessarily, and again, I know we're like kind of probably going down a direction that I don't necessarily want to go, but I feel like there's a lot of different opportunities for women to have their schedules full, right? With other things going on, And so maybe that, I'm not really sure how to break through that, but I do find that like, for instance, what you guys are doing with like the Soiree and the having, hey, here's like a non-intimidating, we've got skills clinics, you can come do that. And then we've got this race option that's, women's only. It's like, a great way to kind of come out and test your abilities. Come and try it, I think that type of thing is great, but I don't think it always has to be a women's only, but it's just, finding those people that for one have the time to be able to race, and also understanding that like them racing might not be, I'm training for 12 weeks before the race, right? Like this is a fun thing. I want to keep it fun, that sort of thing. So it's definitely a difficult thing. I see it like even with, the enduro ladies that I have, like, even though they've signed up and they've committed to this, it's really freaking scary, and especially like the ones that haven't raced or never rode at Sunrise. And then we show up there and for one, it's been raining for 3-4 days. Right. So it's wet and muddy and slippery. And what are routes? Because I ride at South Mountain, we have one route, right? So like, this is scary. Yeah. So, it's like really, I think just like racing's not going to be for everyone.
Sure.
Right? Riding's not going to be for everyone. But I think that there is a tide shift. I think we are going to see more women. And I think just as a race director and being able to kind of make these changes and things like that, just being open to other opportunities and, having the Saguaro Soiree and, things like that, hey, maybe these women that would have no idea that they were going to race. I mean, look at me. I was like very lukewarm on the idea, right?
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, like something drew them out to this race.
Yep.
And even if maybe they just came out to check it out and they didn't race the first time, but then there was some kind of carrot that, hey, this, I could see myself doing this, and it's not as aggressive as I thought it would. I'm not going to be, having to, go down this, super steep place. It's like, these are the trails I ride.
Yeah.
So I can do this and it's fun and I get a trophy or maybe not, but I get to ride with all my friends and this is awesome.
They'll get a trophy.
Okay. Everyone gets a trophy.
Well, no, everyone will get a medal.
Yeah. There you go.
You do have to win to get the trophy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You know what I mean though? Like so yeah. I don't know.
Very cool. We're talking about you segued very well into Soiree, but I do have another question before we jump into that too. And because you mentioned it before, so what is a typical riding day look for you, and then what is a typical like training if you're in that 12 weeks of whatever it might be, like 16, 20, 8, whatever, of training for races or for a series, right?
Yeah.
The enduro series. If you've got a number of races coming up over the next, 3 to 4 months, what does the difference look like for you on, the same Monday?
Yeah. Well, so it really just depends. And I know I hate that answer. It depends. But it's funny because this year, so basically, I had worked with a coach for basically since it would have been 2018, like basically right at the end, like I started working with a coach, a cycling coach who would basically, put together structured training. And, obviously that's going to change through the year depending on where you're at with your racing. So worked with a coach, did really awesome. Loved doing that. I just loved the training aspect of stuff. Right around May of this year, kind of like hit a wall, honestly. Started having some like, basically like I couldn't recover. I was lifting. I couldn't recover it would take me like a week and a half to recover from a lifting session. Not even like, being being an advanced lifter and doing that for a long time. I'm like, red flags, not good. Right. So I really stopped doing any structured training because I couldn't do it all. So this summer, where typically like I had, my race season was kind of a crapshoot because I felt like total crap. And in going through this whole thing, basically, around August after I DNF'd a race and like it was really bad. I was like, something's going on. And, I consult Google and I'm going to die tomorrow. So rest in peace, right? So anyway, just, going and getting blood work and figuring out that like I've got some hormone issues and, so I'm working through all of that. Feeling really good. And getting back to structured training here in probably a month or so. So I've kind of been freestyling, long story short, for this last little bit. In taking, experience from the coaching that I've had in the past, I do intervals once or twice a week. I do long rides on the weekends. Obviously it's more based towards the enduro, so really focusing on really nailing my descents, really making sure, doing a skills day a week, where I'm working on corners, switchbacks, jumps, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. But, in the next month or so, being able to, again, start working with a coach, and then he's going to have some different ideas for me, and I'll be in the hurt locker again, which I'm really excited for after like taking, some time off and like not being able to do that and now feeling like I'm ready. I'm like, let's do this, bring it. So, so the training definitely, typical training regiment, through the times that I have been on a structured training plan, during race season, that's more like a maintenance period, but I'm riding, anywhere from 6 to 10 hours a week, 4 to 6 days a week. I always have at least one rest day. And then, just, off season, since I am probably going to race the XC stuff, I'll shift to more like aerobic based stuff, coming up here soon and kind of work on that.
Yep.
And then, once that's done, kind of shift more back into like the enduro gravity stuff.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
Do you ever ride on the road just to keep?
I do, yeah.
Cardio up?
Yeah. So I laugh because I broke my collarbone last March.
Okay.
So like it would have been 2021.
Yeah.
And so I broke that, and all I could do was road.
Sure.
Which like is hilarious because at that point in time I'd never ridden on the road.
Okay.
Like I was always like, no, I don't ride road,
Sure.
right? And I'm like, this is freaking dangerous. Like it's dangerous and it's really awkward. I can't believe my doctor's allowing me to do this,
Right.
because you feel every vibration.
Yep.
So anyway, like did that. That was all I could do. And I was like, during that point, I'm like, I can't wait because I'm never going to do this again.
When it's
like
over,
I'm done,
close the door on it.
And then, I was able to get cleared, get back on my mountain bike. And I was like, this is awesome. But then like, because I'd always do like, I'd ride, through the week, but
Sure.
Sundays were my like towers, go to the towers.
Yep.
And I'm like, after not doing that for a couple months, I was like, oh my gosh, am I missing this? Like, I'm actually missing this, this feeling.
Yep.
And so I ended up getting a gravel bike earlier this year.
Okay.
And started like doing that. And
Yep.
yeah. And so it is definitely part of my race. I don't, again, like I dabble in the road. Like I'm like, I
Sure.
do little sections of road, right? Like I ride the towers only if it's Silent Sunday.
Okay.
I take gravel to get out to that point,
Sure.
like I'm still not fully committed on the road because I'm just a scaredy cat. I would rather flail myself off a mountain than ride on the road with cars. So
No, I agree. Sometimes traffic can just be a little bit too wild to to take that step onto the sidewalk or beyond. So I agree.
Yeah.
All right, so you mentioned the Soiree, so let's jump into it.
Okay.
So Soiree is coming up. It's Aravaipa's Women's Weekend. It's changing format a little bit this year. We're condensing everything down into one day, but we're actually expanding the weekend too at the same time. So to talk about the day on the mountain, we'll start with skills and mechanics and nutrition and kind of a thing, and I'll let you lead off on that when we go back. But then afterwards, like I think you said before, we'll do a couple different distances, but races for women only. You don't have to be in the clinics to join the race. You could do the clinic and only the clinic. You could do the race and only the race. Obviously, you can do a little bit of both to test out what you did, but that's sort of the general format of the day. But walk us through what the morning is going to look like with some of those clinics you have set up.
Yeah, so I'm actually really excited about this format. Did a similar type of format this summer at Sunrise when I did a Lady Shred Day there at Sunrise Ski Park. So basically the morning is going to be 4 rotating workshops.
Okay.
And so, instead of just, sticking with one coach the whole time and focusing on, one specific thing, basically going to get like kind of a 30-minute, specific, we're working on cornering. Working on body position. We're going to have a race strategies. So you'll learn how to do mass starts and do sprinting and passing and, all the things that kind of look scary. But if you know how to do them, you're going to be awesome.
Right.
So, the 4 rotating workshops. So you'll be able to work with, different coaches. So last year, I had one group. And so not everyone was able to work with me. So this year I'll be able to, work with every single person that comes through because we'll have groups of ladies.
That's great.
So it'll be really cool, and it worked out awesome at Sunrise. So it's going to be great at the Soiree. And then we'll kind of shift gears after we do our skills clinics. We're going to go into we'll have 2 mechanics workshops and a nutrition and fueling clinic. So it'll work out great. Yeah. So it'll basically be the same thing, rotating, everyone will rotate through the 3. And as far as the mechanic stuff, it's going to be more information than like, not everyone's going to learn, not everyone's going to actually be physically changing a tire, right? Here's some tips and tricks. We're going to have a like what's in my pack, show some really cool products and things like that, because it's obviously really important to be prepared on the trail. That's a huge thing that I always try to, praise or get out there. And then as far as the fueling and nutrition, I'm going to have an awesome nutritionist come out and basically talk through, how to fuel properly, how to hydrate properly, and then a Q&A which will be great. So if anyone has any questions on, what do I eat, what do I not eat, all that kind of thing, all the answers are going to be, or all the questions are going to be answered.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's kind of the format of the morning.
Very cool. Yeah, and then we'll get a little bit of a break, and then we'll come back, and there'll be 2 distances. There's a 10-mile and a 20-mile, same course, just 1 loop or 2. This year, we are actually we put it together. I guess the Saguaro Soiree will be running at the same time as the Tonto Mountain Rides, which is another Aravaipa race with multiple distances as well. So you'll actually be the ladies will be riding the same 10-mile course as the Tonto Mountain. But by that time in the afternoon, the majority of those riders will be off. The only folks still riding will be some of the 50 and 100 milers, I believe, at that point. So it'll be almost like an open course, which is going to be great. It's you're familiar with the trails there, so super flowy. A little bit of technical on the east side when you get into some rocks and stuff like that and coming back up Blevins, but it's a great place, especially I think if it's your first race, man, woman, child, it doesn't matter, just to get out there and race that first time, because it's not too scary. There's nothing that's going to, you don't look down over anything, dropping off of anything of any distance. And a lot of flat, open type space. So it's a great place just to kind of get out there and test your mettle again, whether you're a first timer or brand new to first time racer, or like brand new to being on a mountain bike on a trail. So I think it's a great opportunity just to get out there and see if you like it.
Definitely.
And come back, and the idea of moving it into the same weekend, the same day as the Tonto Mountain, was to give everybody who registers for Saguaro Soiree the opportunity just to kind of see what a full-scale race looked like. You were here last year for it. We had a kind of a full operation out there, but with just the soiree going on, it didn't really look like it. It looked like there was a whole lot of stuff set up and then nothing really going on, because you guys were doing this and doing that. And so it was never really like, oh, this is what happens. Yeah. So the opportunity then to see what a full-scale race, what our vendor village, the whole shebang. Yeah, I think
just the whole vibe, like everyone kind of,
the excitement of it to, maybe, bring a few people out. And obviously, as we were talking about, getting more women into racing, that was sort of the goal, is to be able to, they can see, and you'll be there doing your workshop, and hopefully we're not distracting you as we're sending racers off for the first hour every 15 minutes, but different distances going off, and you'll see that excitement, you'll see that build up, and you'll see people taking off in the desert for their 10, 20, whatever mile course, and then coming through, right? So the ones who have to do the multiple loops, you'll be seeing them all day long come through, and whether they're stopping or not, but have that experience. So I thought that was super important. And then we sort of condensed it into one, because we had that spread over 2 days last year. But then we extended the weekend to include Friday this year, because we're going to do this really cool thing I'm excited for, movie night on Friday night. So this all takes place November 11th through the 13th. The soiree is on the 13th, and then the movie night is on the 11th, Friday. And it's going to take right here at the office, Aravaipa office. We have a number of movies. We've partnered with World Ride, which is a nonprofit organization that, I guess simply said, tries to empower women through mountain biking, through getting more women on bikes.
Throughout the world.
Throughout the world, yes. Good. Thank you for catching that. They are, in fact, a lot of it seems to be focused more outside the U.S. than inside. Yep. Which is great, too. And they have a series of movie nights. I think they bring the same films, or at least right now. Or they might rotate them over the course of a year or whatnot, but sort of like a film festival that travels throughout the country. We were lucky enough to hook up with them and have them come out to us. So they're actually going to come out here, show the films. It's a half dozen or 8 shorter films, all subjected around women and biking, one way or another. So really looking forward to that. Tickets are on sale now, so you can definitely go online and find them. And looking forward to bringing. You don't have to be registered for the soiree. You don't have to be a woman. Bring your family.
Everyone can come.
This is an everybody can come kind of thing. So come out and check it out.
I am going to be bringing my husband.
I will be there. So yes, there's 2 of us. There'll be at least 2 men there. No, it is not restricted to anyone or for anyone. I believe all the movies are family friendly for the most part. So I think bring your kids as well. I was told definitely a family oriented type thing. So bring the family out, check out these films. I think the total runtime with probably a little bit of a break is about 2 hours. So kind of your typical night out at the movies anyway. And I think it's going to be really exciting and a great way to kick off this. You've been very generous, so we're going to do some raffles, and you've been generous enough to donate 2 2-hour coaching sessions to the raffle, so that'll be very cool. Come down and get a raffle ticket, and maybe you can work with Steph in the future on your own stuff. But I think it's going to really kind of take this weekend and make it a little bit different. It's not just like adding another race or another activity at the race to do. It's like we're now kind of delving into some other type of activities that, it all works out together. It works in together, but it's a little bit different. And like I said, I'm excited to do it. It's just something new we've never done on the running or the riding side of Aravaipa before.
Yeah,
so
that's exciting.
I'm hosting this. Let's see, where was I going with that? I think I lost my track of thought.
So as far as what is the raffle benefiting World Ride or?
So good question. So tickets are, I'll just go into the whole thing. So tickets are $20 for adults, $10 for kids. That's to the movie night itself. All those proceeds will go to World Ride.
Cool.
The raffle tickets will also go to World Ride. So those are $5, and I think there's different tiers you could buy. 10 for X amount of dollars, and 20 if you want to do that. But I think they're $5 each if you're just buying singles, and that all goes to World Ride as well. So 100% of the proceeds goes there. We will have our charity beer garden. It's not really going to be a garden because we're inside, but we'll have that open as well, and probably some light refreshments. The charity beer garden, however, those proceeds will go to Clean Up Papago, which goes back to Marion.
Yeah.
That's her organization, and they have a really strong affinity for the Papago Park area, and keeping that open for riders, hikers, runners, and whatnot. And in the last few years, I know it's gotten just a lot messier with just things going on and funds
building
being tight
and everything.
And it's just gotten a lot worse than it was a few years before that. It's just, I guess, snowballed, whatever you want to say. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And they go out there, I know, a few times a year to do these really big organized cleanups. They'll have a few coming up this fall. I'm sure we'll try to get involved. I know I've mentioned to her to let me know so that we can kind of promote it as well. But they're doing good stuff. And,
and the amount of like trash that they haul out and like what they find is absolutely insane.
Some
of
their stories are like, you're like, is that real?
Yeah, like, okay, this is in
like
the city.
The big fish story. Like, is it really this big? Or was
it,
right. Like, I've heard a few of them too, and it's just like, I'm like, really? Like, the parks wasn't like park services or whomever wasn't like keeping up and finding some of this stuff, and it's amazing that they do. So great call out. All the proceeds for movie night will go to one charity or another, one 501c to another or another. So good stuff all around. I think, for that.
Yeah, I love it.
Again, though, I've lost my complete train of thought, so I'll make sure I'll
drink a little coffee.
So there's a few spots here around. We've got an hour.
Okay.
What else is there? What else did you want to talk about?
I think we covered a lot.
We did.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's actually, we're at hour 7.
Okay.
Well, I guess we could wrap it up there then.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to go. I had this great thing going, and we got to Soiree, and I was like, wow, it kind of just sort of ended.
Yeah. It just dropped off.
It just dropped off. No worries. All right, I'll do some sort of a outro here, and then we can we'll just stop recording, and I'll make sure he notes to cut all this babble out.
Cut here.
Don't listen to us talking. All right. Well, I think we've covered it all, Steph. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll probably have to do this again sometime.
Yeah.
For sure. So once again, I'll just mention Soiree is November 13th. It's a Sunday. We have mechanics and skills and hydration clinics in the beginning, and then a 10-mile or 20-mile race in the afternoon to choose from. That one is specifically women's only. If you want to bring your husband or your kid to Tonto, they can ride at the Tonto race on the Tonto side while you're doing your soireeing. Definitely. And then we have movie night on that Friday, the Friday before. It's November 11th. Doors will open at 6:30. Movies will start at 7. So again, thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
Definitely like I said, definitely do this again.
Yeah.
Everyone, we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.